Eike Waltz and Sheila Halligan-Waltz are here in the studio. They're going to be talking about their upcoming exhibition at the Felix Kulpa Gallery that begins this Friday, September 4th. It's called The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention. Sheila, you are a painter, oils or what's your
oils?
Oils
Yes.
Painting. And then Eike, you are a sculptor, and then you both are conceptual artists, would you say?
Well, we are giving a response to conceptual art.
Say that again?
We give a response to conceptual art and our interpretation, how we feel about it.
Yeah, and you also express that with items such as sculptures and
Right, we express that with a full outdoor and indoor installation.
And that's happening this Friday is the opening reception, September 4th, and the exhibition called The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention continues through October 2nd, 2015. There's a marvelous exhibition that's happening. I had the pleasure of getting a sneak preview yesterday and was able to be given the tour as well as the different milestones or stops that you have along the way. It's an entire journey that you go through as a participant in this both sculptural, painting, photography, conceptual piece.
Yes.
All right, I got it right. The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention. The title alone begs to be discussed. First, I want to talk a little bit about some of your work. You both have been doing political art exhibitions for several decades.
Since 2004.
2004, which was your first piece called Outrage.
In San Francisco.
In San Francisco. And then you had Outrage, Outreach.
Yes, we thought we first been outraged, and then we thought that we also have to explain, what would be the outreach, the counter to it.
Excellent. And then we had Out in 2000.
Out, that was the out of the Bush administration.
Hallelujah. And then we had Sex and City, Impolitic Erotic Art. And we want to do a full disclosure. The exhibition, The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention, is not made for young people, young children.
It should be, it's defined for over 18 years of age.
And simply because it's kind of explicit, it's not,
Yes, it touches on some sore spots, and they're pretty explicit.
Right. And you might say that would be, Sheila, kind of your paintings are the ones that are pretty out there. You do figurative figures, very obviously human figures, and you painted these recently?
Yes, and my paintings are basically really more or less in your face.
Yeah, in your face about gender, sexuality.
Right, and what has what I call legitimate rape. And two of the paintings are dealing with the Catholic Church and pedophiles. And the other ones are Adam and Eve. And it's pretty explicit, of what has gone on, what happened with the Catholic Church and what's happening today with all the pedophiles with children.
And it's also got a little bit of a humor, it's not like,
No, it has some humor.
It makes you feel bad when you look at it. It's not like painful. It's very, your colors are very, I want to say, I was thinking Kandinsky. Your colors are both towards the basic palette, the primary colors, but also a little bit pastel-y, a little muted, but very bright and colorful.
Yeah, they're very bright and colorful, and so I think it makes it a little bit easier.
And when you say legitimate rape,
Mm-hmm.
you mean the legitimization or the allowing to continue some of the things happening?
Well, in 2012, during the election, Senator Todd Akin from Ohio said that a woman can turn off her body when she is raped.
That's right.
And he coined the phrase legitimate rape. And Senator Murdoch had said that it's God's will when a woman is raped.
So this is a direct response
Right.
to
Right.
these political statements.
Yeah, it's a series I'm doing about legitimate rape.
And the paintings are pretty large, 3 by 3, are they, or 3 feet by 3 feet?
3 by 4.
3 by 4. So they're very large, not quite life size, but
Close to it.
yeah, child size. So this is really skipping ahead to the heart of the exhibition when we talk about your paintings. And
Right.
so maybe we should step back a little bit, and Ike, perhaps you and Sheila can talk us through what a participant that comes to the gallery, what they would go through entering into the Felix Kulpa gallery.
Well, I call it the stations of intention, because the title is, of course, the beast and its intention. So when you enter the gallery, you are first confronted with a massive telephone pole and equipped with telephone equipment, power equipment, and all that type of stuff. So this is what I call the tyrant and your mind, because that's where we get our information from. Telephone pole, either via hardwire or via wireless. Then this information is compressed into what is called in television or radio ratings. They're very, very important, because only if you know what the ratings are, you can exploit them. And after that possibility of exploitation, which is more and more refined, so we can be more and more exploited, negatively and positively, of course, right? Then you go through a process what I call the Barbie Mindedness curtain. So we are all now, we are all going now in the same direction, right? And with our minds.
Within the same bandwidth
Within the same
that we've
bandwidth.
had transmitted through the telephone poles. And I want to just tell everyone, you built a telephone pole in the Felix Kulpa gallery outside in the sculptural garden. And so when you talk about this Barbie curtain, you're literally walking through underneath a curtain of Barbies.
Correct.
You're listening to Ike Waltz talk about his upcoming exhibition opening this Friday, September 4th, The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention. So now we're at the doorway of the gallery itself.
That's correct. Now you enter in the first room, technology and progress. That's the first question we have. How much progress have we really made in technology? I was involved with designing switches, very powerful switches for telco industry. And we have to design all the equipment to comply to what is called 5 nines high availability. That means whatever you design has to be in the year 99.999% available. So it leaves you a few seconds of outage time a year. But at the same time, we still have telephone posts, which seems to be technology from the 1900s. Matter of fact, when I did the research, I found that telephone posts were in 1873 outlawed in New York because they were considered to be dangerous to the public. Well, we still live with telephone posts, And we have on these telephone poles, or utility poles as they're called, we have a lot of wires on it, from the high power to the low power to the telephone and to the cable and a lot of other things.
And just for the dear audience to understand, the telephone poles in many countries have instituted policy to put everything underground, which makes it much safer in case of an earthquake or some kind of natural phenomenon that would knock over the poles. Then you have, like for instance, here in the Santa Cruz Mountains, whenever there's a big storm, there could be a telephone pole goes down, then you have this crazy, really high-charged wire that could start a fire, that could, kill people.
Or somebody simply drives his car into the pole.
Or environmentally.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us a little bit more what you mean by that, Sheila, environmentally?
Oh, yes. There's all kinds of controversy about all the electrostatic fields, etc., that's from the telephone poles and the wires, everything that's, smartphone, smart meters, and which people have been fighting for years and years.
And isn't also the pole, isn't it also coated with toxic material,
yes.
like physically also?
Yes.
The poles themselves are soaked with toxic material to prevent decay, and termites can get in and all that type of stuff.
Right. It can smell pretty bad.
So
we're inside the gallery.
We are inside the gallery.
What station are we at again, if you could remind us? The station?
The station of technology and progress.
That's right.
So inside the first part of the gallery, you see from the ceiling coming an endless amount of so-called wires, and they are connected to a selection of 800 photos which I took of telephone posts, and they're built up with technology.
Some of them look pretty gnarly, folks.
Very interesting. And all these wires come together and enter in the so-called inner beast. So that's the beast as a sculpture there, and all the wires go into the beast. It's the inner beast. It is your profile which comes together here, and which is also, again, exploited from there, but how it has affected you being profiled.
And you can see a picture of the Conceptual Beast on this week's Good Times. They're on page 42, talking about the calendar events in the Felix Kulpa gallery. There's a picture of Eike sculpting the beast. And where did you find your inspiration? It looks like a jolly, snarling. Tell us about this head, this beast.
Well, I like watching in the morning between 8 and 9 on community television, channel 26, the Arts Channel. And there is a particular jazz musician which inspired me for that head. I've just forgot his name, but he played with Django Reinhardt. He's a violinist, right? And so he inspired the shape of the head.
So he's bald.
Yes.
And are you using, is that marble?
It is presently a maquette made out of plaster of Paris, but the intention of all my sculptures are to be bronze casted.
And yet you're using, what are you using to sculpt the maquette with? It looks like a chisel and it's pretty hard. I like to cast a block of plaster of Paris, maybe 2 feet by 2 feet and 4 feet high, whatever the end piece should appear out of it. And then I chisel out the shape I like to free, as Rodin said. As Michelangelo also, I believe,
Yes.
talked about freeing David from the marble.
Right. I'm not a Michelangelo, by the way. So
No, but you're a very interesting sculptor. I really, really enjoy the aesthetic of your pieces. The Beast is a little different from your last series of...
Yes, it is different, but I show the different aspects of, or the different styles of sculpting. And I choose the purpose of the style to what I want to say, or what will communicate best.
So you're freeing the conception.
That's right.
And so, Ike, you a lot of your sculptures I've seen are very smooth, are very precise edges, almost manufactured.
That's
Is that
correct,
and I'm
but-
assuming that's intentional.
Well, in my professional life, I was also a engineer, and I stopped my engineering career end of last year.
Oh, congratulations!
So, but I was trained as an engineer. I also have a Master's of Arts of the Royal College in London in sculpting. So
you like it precise?
yeah, I like aesthetic and I like precision in whatever I like to say. I think again, as a sculptor, I speak with my sculptures. As a painter, you speak with your paintings. As a writer, you speak with what you write, right, and so on. As a musician, you speak with your music, and I have to make it to communicate. It's my way of speaking.
Yeah, and I love it. Thank you so much. So we're in the beginning, the first room of the Felix Kulpa Gallery. We are looking at the Beast. The Beast has all of the wires are going into the Beast. And then
one, the lifeline of the whole show is a green light rope and a red light rope. That is the lifeline throughout the show. And at the beginning of the show, you have so-called stations of intention, which shows you which way you should progress to the show to get some sort of understanding of it. And of course, it's up to you how you want to interpret it. So the lifeline goes from the head then, from the Beast, right, into the next room. And in the next room, we are talking now about the creation of gender, which Sheila talked briefly about it, the creative arousal. So there's some art interpretations, what we could do, in this case, my interpretation of what we could do with Santa Cruz bridges to make them more interesting. Not that you have to do it, please, but please think about it, that you could do something with these naked concrete crossings which get you from one side of the river to the other, and you forget that you even drove over it. And then a small interlude to life, passing of life, a little homage to Sheila's sister. And then the society's excesses, which Sheila briefly talked about it, namely legitimate rape.
So when we spoke about this yesterday, Ike, you talked about, so we've gone through this bandwidth, we've gone through this bandwidth that's getting smaller and smaller. We're being given ratings to know what's good and what's bad. We bring it all together. The Beast has, in effect, created the world we are living in, and then how we want to respond to that is this last room.
Yes.
So all of us have the ability to respond to the Beast. We can express it artistically.
This is very individual now, this last room. It's our interpretation, right, what we see.
Right.
But it should only open your mind.
Right.
Like I always like to say to young people, please don't become the tyrant of your own mind. That, by the way, is not from me. It's by Stendhal. You can read it in his book Rouge et Noir. And so, yes, It's our interpretation, what we see, and how we would like to speak about it. But it should also open the door to others to say how they would like to speak about it,
Right.
and what they would like to speak about.
You've been listening to Eike Waltz talk about his new exhibition, The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention. It's a co-artist exhibition with Sheila Halligan-Waltz, who's also here. We're going to be talking to her a bit more in the second half of the show. Their exhibition begins this Friday, September 4th, at the Felix Kulpa Gallery in Santa Cruz, and will continue through October 2nd. I think that the reception is going to be one fun time, folks. Sit back and relax.
Yeah, we have even a good band there.
We're going to have music. Right now we're going to listen to a little more Cesaria Evora, and we'll be back for the second half of this week's Artist on Art. Stay tuned, everyone. And we're back. This is Artist on Art. I am your host, Nada Milkovich, and I've got the great pleasure of speaking with Sheila Halligan-Waltz here in the studio, and Eike Waltz. They have an opening exhibition happening Friday, September 4th at the Felix Kulpa Gallery. It's called The Conceptual Beast and Its Intention, and it starts at 5 o'clock and it goes till 9. There's going to be music. There's usually some fun things to drink, and we'll see. No? Ike is, I don't know. Well, I'm sure it'll be great, whatever is offered, other than, of course, to feed your soul with the art and the expression of Sheila and Eike. So, Eike, you have a few more things that you wanted to talk to us about. For instance, you have a poem.
Well, first of all, how I got confronted with conceptual art.
Yes. Tell us about that.
That was an unusual thing. And again, I'm not trying to be the tyrant of my own mind, too. Not only preaching it, I also would like to live this life, even so it is not always easy. Matter of fact, I fail a lot. So in this particular case, my son from Berlin came to visit us beginning of the year. And he is a conceptual artist in Europe and very well known. Matter of fact, he had shows in New York. He had given presentations and seminars in Chicago, in Toronto, and so on. And he is, as I said, a purist conceptual artist. So he doesn't particularly care what I do, because I was at that time not really a conceptual artist at all.
So he was poo-pooing your sculpting.
Yes, of course, right. That's my son, right, so I should be any different with it. So anyhow, we finally got to talk about it, and the more we talked about it, the more I got intrigued. So when he finally left, I looked into or researched what conceptual art really means. And it was very revelatory. And also quite confusing. Yes, it started in the late 20s with Duchamp in Paris, where he had his toilet bowl as a first piece of conceptual art shown. Le Pissoir,
which I believe he was taking a manufactured assembly line piece and signed it and put it in the museum and said, here you go, you want a sculpture? Here's my sculpture. And from that, the question of authenticity and many other, well, you tell us.
Well, it meant conceptual or conceptualism was particularly in philosophy. There it was its strongest represented, and it sidetracked, I would call that sidetracked into painting, into sculpture and other forms of art. And it has many different points of view in meanwhile what conceptual art really is and should be. Then we are at a point now that conceptual art is actually also has become an old hat. So with being an old hat, they're talking now about deconceptualism.
What?
That means...
Wait, what is deconceptual art?
Now, what is deconceptual? It was mentioned in one of the critics' papers And so I researched what deconceptualism means, and you can't find anything, neither in Wikipedia or anywhere else. Nobody really knows what it is, except to say it would be a concept without intention, or a conceptualism would have not even a concept, with other words. At least that's where I arrived at this point. So that prompted me to write a little poem about it, to get off my frustration on what I understood and didn't understand. So I called it, and since it was around Valentine's Day, I called it The Conceptual Beast, or Be My Valentine. So art is yesterday, they say. Then conceptualism is no tomorrow, but a passing wind for you alone to detect a nauseous smell. Conceptual art denies what we learned to see, but looks beyond its erected rooster. The intent muted, or, at best, a lame ejaculation. The resulting bitter taste questions my so dearly protected soul. So they call it conceptual bull, right up its own rectum. The prognosis, deconceptualism, art without a concept. Oh, be my Valentine, being not even, as between the nothing and the end remains only you, my forever loving intent.
Bravo. Should I snap my fingers to that? Deconception. I'm going to have to really... I don't even know if I want to really think about that, actually. It sounds like a rabbit hole.
I would like to think about it, but I have no way of finding any information in research where I could form some sort of an opinion.
Well, what does your son say?
He thinks I don't understand him.
Well, having kids, I understand completely how
that's
really your position. I'm empathetic with your situation. So you came to conceptual art with kind of the guidance of your son through discussing with him and thinking of art, maybe the sculpture with more of a kind of a meta umbrella, or...
It's more like an installation, but it's a performance installation. So it's installation with performance, or in itself, these two things are seem to be kind of married.
So I just want to let my audience know that we did have to censor your poem. And you had to change it. And I want to thank you for changing it. And I know how important it is for artists to be true to their art. And so, Sheila, your subject matter can be censored. I know some of Ike's sculptures have been censored also. They're very fun, folks. You're going to love them. But yours, you've had this experience here in Santa Cruz, haven't you?
Yes.
But the interesting part is, and sorry to bust in here, is that this work was shown in Chicago.
And in New York.
And New York.
Seattle. And L.A.
So your work has been shown all over the U.S., but your hometown here in Santa Cruz gets a little touchy about it?
Edgy.
Edgy about it, yes.
You must find this interesting.
Well, for me, it sort of plays right into what we're doing. You know, all the criticism or anything is exactly making the point of what we're trying to express and what we're trying to, the messages that we're trying to convey. It's like the reaction is absolutely playing into exactly what we have been expressing.
And so walk us through that a little bit with specifically your newest series called Legitimate Rape.
Well, it's going to be interesting when people see it and how they do respond, because all the tragedies with children and all the pedophiles and all the rapes with the church, etc., motivated me to start a series called Legitimate Rape. And I have a very huge painting I'm working on, which is almost completed, but it has several senators and Pope Benedict in it. And then there's a rape scene, and the woman is basically like a Barbie, the all-American blonde, buxom, and she's being raped by the bald eagle, the American flag. And it's very, very dramatic, very much in your face. But I'm trying to make a point that to be able to express myself about what's happening and what happened in the church and what happens with kids every day is absolutely, horrendous. And so if something I can speak through with my art to show people, there has to be change. And people, thank God, we don't have to be hushed or whatever. They did try when here in Santa Cruz, when we had a show called Sex and City. And we had all the expression of different types of art, which, erotic, sexual, everything. And our last night of the show, the police came and called me out. They asked for me. I stepped outside, and they said, do you have a noise permit? I said, a noise permit? And I went back in, and the owners of the property said, you must be kidding. And I called Eike out, and he said, the owner said, no, we don't have a permit for noise. And then they said, where are the strippers? And they had in their hand our brochure of our program, and it's our last night. And the thing is, the noise thing was, we had a band called Noise Clinic. We had a band called Power Strip. But somebody told the city we had strippers and there was noise.
And, of course, we're talking about Sex in the City.
Sex and City. So, actually, that all worked in our favor because it did say what we were saying, here are the police now to close this down. And it was our last night. So, we do make really, I think, statements that people can relate to, and we want to make a difference as far as speaking through our art to make change and to help, different causes.
Sheila Halligan-Waltz, talking about her series and her paintings. You've been a painter for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and has erotic elements been a part of it all along?
Well, when I started painting, it was more like very portraits and emotional, and until the Iraq War, until 9/11 actually, and then that changed my whole thing of purpose of saying let's make a difference. So.
Politically.
Mm-hmm, political. But I was raised Catholic, so I know what the bandwidth, bandwidth that you're given. Yeah, right.
Well, that's the word, bandwidth here, right?
Yeah.
First of all, our website is F-Art Statements. And some people laugh when they hear this, and I said, what is wrong? F stands for fine art, right? And they, of course, assume something else. But it's statements what we make. We make statements, big statements where we look for ways of saying things outside that bandwidth we have talked before about, outside the rating bandwidths which they try to compress us in. So we try to get around it, right? And of course it's uncomfortable sometimes, right? And it should be.
And I speak for out on different issues of homelessness, breast cancer, gay rights, women's rights, and I can only do it through my art.
Well, thank you for doing that, Sheila, and expressing some, as Ike said, bringing people into an uncomfortable space to confront some of these really deeply rooted cultural, it's just incredible to me that these politicians made the statements that they did about fallacies of the woman's body and the ability for a uterus to turn off or turn on depending on the mood.
Right.
And, you know, how they got that confused with perhaps some other animal behaviors or animal physiological things that happen but not in humans. That's not how it works. Yeah. And that these elected officials could continue repeating these fallacies.
But that year, they all lost their seats, so that was a good thing.
Yeah, that was. I remember that also. Yeah. I was very grateful that they were, you know, shown that they can't make these kind of statements. But there's still a war on women.
There's still a war on women. And so I will be continuing painting away.
How many paintings do you have in this exhibition?
Oh, in this exhibition I only have 5.
5 paintings?
Yeah, 5 paintings.
And then there's also the sculptures that Ike talked just a little bit about, because what you've done is you've taken these 2-foot, perhaps, high sculptures, some of them?
Some are 5 feet high and whatever.
Oh, in the exhibition?
Yes.
Oh, yes, some of them are much higher, of course. But I'm thinking about the...
But they're all maquettes, right?
And so I was thinking of the ones that are in the final room, the room where you're confronted with how you want to express.
For instance, the sculpture which is in front of the 2 legitimate rape paintings is called Opus Num. Opus stands for work, or Latin. Num is also a Latin word for it is something you may argue about in a negative way. And it's supposed to be it. So it reflects what you see on the back, where you feel uncomfortable with, or may want to express it differently by somebody else, right? So it is a Christ figure on the cross. However, it's very different. Instead of INRI written on the top, it says Opus Num.
Would you mind describing one of the sculptures that you have in the back room? There, quite a few of them are with couples.
Yes, one is called
Golden Goldie.
Golden Goldie. These are 2 women, one when she is young and let's say 18 years old, and one when she is 80 years old. And if you look at the detail, how the body is being presented, you see the difference, the typical difference of age, right? The other one is Dance Abstract, right? So that is about a very abstract dance figure. Then we have the shelf portrait. So it's my portrait on a shelf, right? So that's the meaning behind it. Or Midsummer Night. So just think about the sultry midsummer night and, enjoying or...
Man and woman.
man and woman.
And so these sculptures are high, thin, many of them.
Yeah, they're all made from, that's interesting, because these are born from something completely different. I was a great admirer of Jean Cocteau, and I met him in a dream. And I had a wonderful dream with Jean Cocteau. And that was when I was about 20 years old. And he put me in front of a whiteboard and gave me a pen and said, start. And I said, I don't know what I should start. So he took the pen, made a few lines, and he gave me the pen back and said, continue. I said, I don't know what I should do. And that happened many times, forward, backwards. And once suddenly I saw there was one line missing. So I put that one line in. He said, you see, every line matters. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life. So what you see in these figures are, like stickmen. They're based on like when you were a child and you draw the stickmen. So these are three-dimensional stickmens, so to speak.
With more than...
Of course. It's, of course, very sophisticated.
Yes, very sophisticated, very beautiful, linear in 3 dimensions, all white. Very obviously, they're figures. Yeah. And the figures are having a lot of fun, most of them.
Scent of a woman.
Scent of the woman, yes.
They have, sometimes there's 2 of them together.
Yes, and embracing each other, yes.
And then what you did, I don't want to give away too much. I want folks to go to the exhibition. So I think I'm not going to tell you what I was going to say. What you need to do, though, is find out yourself on September 4th, the opening reception of the Conceptual Beast and its intention. The artists are Eike Waltz and Sheila Halligan-Waltz. They are conceptual artists. Sheila works mainly in paints, oil painting. Eike also works quite a bit in sculpture, as he's been describing the marquettes, sculpting out of marquettes. But you also do this sculpture of a telephone pole that you built.
Yes, the sculptures of the telephone pole is also called utility poles, are now recognized as pure street art. And we have about 200 million of those in the United States alone. And they're being called underappreciated art installations.
And we can do more than just throw shoes over them, although the utility companies are very possessive of these telephone utility poles. We talked briefly about how you tried to buy one and they would not even consider it.
That's correct. And matter of fact, when we set the pole up in the outside of the gallery and the sculpture garden, one person from PG&E, it must have been an engineer who worked there, he came to us and said, oh, you're not going to put power into this transformer up there. Well, it was an empty can, but it looked so real that he mistaken it as a real transformer.
Yeah, I was I thought it was real also, and it wasn't until we talked that I realized that this was all made from just regular ropes and nylon ropes, right? Or
these are nylon ropes,
and cans and a big round piece of wood that you
and the insulators are made from little plastic dishes.
And so you'll get to see all of this at the Felix Kulpa Gallery. The opening reception, again, is this Friday, September 4th. It opens at 5 p.m., goes to 9. There will be live music. The reception, if you can't make it to the reception, the exhibition will continue through October 2nd for the entire month of September. Again, at the Felix Kulpa Gallery. Part of it is in the sculpture garden, that leads into the gallery, and you will get to go through an entire walk and perhaps journey not only with the art but also with your mind and how you want to confront your beast. I want to thank you so much, Ike Waltz, Sheila Halligan-Waltz. It's been such a pleasure getting to know your work.
Thank you.
And I hope we can have you back on sometime soon with your next exhibition. Maybe we can get some sculptures on our bridges here in Santa Cruz. You've got supporter here.